Hi, it's Dwyer. DwyerBoxingNews.com, GamblersAdvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Today is September the 25th, 2012. Here are the stories that are on my mind. By the way, congratulations to those of you who followed my pick for yesterday's Monday Night Football game posted at DwyerFootballNews.com. Okay, there are different levels of big fights. There's the obvious big fight that everyone's talking about. A David Haye, Derek Chisora fight, for example. The casual fan knows about that fight. That fight has a certain social significance that people are into. Everyone knows about the incidents leading up to the fight. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen in the fight. People are buzzing. But then you have the fight that appeals to the hardcore boxing fan. Different group all together, right? These are the fights that come along where people who watch a lot of boxing whisper to each other and say, wow, this fight could be an upset. To the public, it's David versus Goliath. But to insiders, people are looking at it and saying, wow, what's going to happen? Right? A few years ago, there was a fight like this. Then, relatively unknown, Andre Ward against Mikkel Kessler. I actually made a video still up here on YouTube saying, don't touch this fight. Forget what the public thinks. Kessler then widely viewed as dominant at the weight. This fight might be different. This Andre Ward guy might be more talented than anyone realizes. Well, let me tell you, I hop online and in my YouTube mailbox and in comments on videos, a lot of hardcore boxing fans. These are boxing fans that, quite frankly, I follow what they say online because these fans know a lot about boxing. They're buzzing about this upcoming fight that's flying under the radar between champion, we'll call him Goliath, Adrian Broner. In fact, I'm not even sure if Broner is the champ at 135, and he's facing Tony DeMarco. Now, DeMarco just blew out John Molina. DeMarco beat Jorge Linares. Many hardcore fans believe that DeMarco has a chance because he's a tall southpaw with an excellent straight left hand. Right? His left hand's his dominant hand. And they feel that the fight that Broner had the biggest problem with in his career was against a southpaw, Daniel Ponce de Leon, who quite frankly threw more than 100 more punches than Broner in that fight. Right? HBO, Harold Letterman, it's early in the morning, had that fight scored a draw. Right? The theory goes that, like Floyd Mayweather, who had a problem with both Zab Judah and DeMarcus Corley, Adrian Broner, who many feel is a Floyd Mayweather protege stylistically, is going to have a problem operating out of a Philly shell against a southpaw because of the angles. Right? The way a Philly shell is, let's say that I'm Adrian Broner. I have my left shoulder facing out to my opponent, right? The idea is that while that throws off a righty, a lefty throwing a straight left hand down the pipe won't run into the shoulder, right? That lefty might be able to hit me flush, right? And so many people look at DeMarco's power. They look at the bloody mess that was Jorge Linares' face at the end of that fight. They look at John Molina out of it in the first round in his fight. They look at the power. and they think that he has a shot on Adrian Broner. Let me be as blunt as possible. I don't. I view the fight as a mismatch. I'm riding with Broner big time in this one. Let me just say that Tony DeMarco might be a blind spot for me, because the Tony DeMarco I've watched didn't look that impressive against Agnes Ajajo. Quite frankly, I didn't think he looked that impressive against Jorge Linares. I thought Linares won most of the early rounds. In fact, and I know there are many of you who don't buy my boxing philosophy on stopping fights, but I thought the stoppage in the Linares fight was a bit premature, because again, although Linares was bleeding profusely, I thought he was winning the fight. Now let me just say, none of the three judges did. I'll be the first to concede that. None of the judges thought Linares was winning that fight. What I would encourage you to do is to sit down and actually score the fight yourself. Forget these judges. Score the fight yourself. I think what you're going to see is Linares with superior hand speed, quite frankly, dominating Tony DeMarco for, I would say, much of the early part of the fight. Yes, he's bleeding. Yes, his face is a bloody mess. But again, I'm old school. I'm from the 70s. Your face can be a bloody mess as long as you can see, and as long as you are lucid, as long as that blood is not streaming into your eye and blinding you. Then, being an OG from the Vito Altafermo days, where his face was a bloody mess in practically every fight, you know, it's my belief that the ref should let the fight continue. Now, I'll concede that had the ref let the fight continue, Linares would have lost on the judges' scorecards if he didn't get a knockout. We know that because now we have the judges' scorecards. But I believe that at least people would have then revisited the fight and asked the hard question of whether the judges' scorecards were accurate, right? Because I don't believe they were. I wasn't impressed with Tony DeMarco in that fight. I thought John Molina in his last fight was a bit overrated. I certainly wasn't impressed with Tony DeMarco when he fought Edwin Valero, right? DeMarco looked like he could not fight inside. He couldn't even tie up Valero. He couldn't counter Valero. He doesn't have that level of timing. I thought DeMarco, quite frankly, looked flawed. The way I see this fight going, you know, because I even question whether Adrian Broner is even right-handed. I think he's different than Floyd Mayweather. I know they look the same in the ring, but Mayweather is a righty who has a very hard right counter that he can throw. I don't see that level of power in Broner's right hand. Broner, to me, is more of a left hooker, right? Floyd Mayweather has a great left hook. Ricky Hatton fans may remember the words "check left hook" from that fight, right? Certainly the Juan Manuel Marquez group remembers Floyd's left hooks in that fight, right? But Floyd's right-handed. I believe Broner's really inverted. I believe Broner is a lefty fighting orthodox. I believe his best punch is his left hook. Let me also say, too, since DeMarco had problems with Jorge Linares' hand speed, why wouldn't he have problems with Adrian Broner's hand speed? I think Broner... Oh, also, let's remember, Ponce de Leon, high volume, right? Look at the CompuBox numbers. Those are a lot of punches. Tony DeMarco, low volume. This is going to be a chess match between a guy with faster hand speed who can fight inside when he wants to, who can fight outside, who has better defense against a big hitter, right, who really wants to keep you at distance behind a right jab and then throw a great straight left hand, right? The bet I'm recommending is Broner to win the fight, straddled against DeMarco by knockout. Let me just say something else too. Sometimes I get emails or comments from people who haven't worked out the math to figure out that a fighter can be a favorite. He can be a 3-1 or 4-1 favorite. And you can still straddle the play as long as you're getting better than 3 or 4-1 on the other side of the bet. Right? Since Adrian Broner has never been knocked out, in fact, he's never been stopped, you're likely to get huge odds on Tony DeMarco by KO. Right? So even if Broner is, and I haven't seen the line, a 3 or 4-1 favorite, you can still hedge the play. You can ensure the play by having DeMarco by knockout on the other side of the bet. Let me say something else too. You know, a profit's a profit. If you leave the casino with more money than you entered the casino, I consider that a win. Right? Gambling, we really have to get real. I think some believe you can just bet on fights and more than double and triple your money. That's rare. More times than not, it's really more of an investment type thing, just like you would buy a bond and get 5% interest or something like that. You have to view gambling the same way. The only difference is you're not waiting a year for that 5%. You're actually getting the money the same day. And so some of these bets are not going to be extremely lucrative. All we're trying to do is to take money from the casino, not give our money to the casino. And why are hedges very important? All I could say is the 12th round of Sergio Martinez Chavez Jr. If you were hedged there, if you had Chavez Jr. by KO as your hedge with Martinez to win, you watched that 12th round feeling safe, knowing you had profited, right? Any other way, you're at risk for the one-punch knockout. So here, I'm recommending a hedge of Broner to win, straddled against DeMarco by KO. I do not believe that Tony DeMarco can beat Adrian Broner by decision, right? The bottom line is Broner has fast hands like Jorge Linares, and Broner, unlike Linares, will be able to come inside. You get inside on Tony DeMarco, and he starts losing rounds. Look at the Reyes-Sanchez fight. Right? Tony DeMarco can't fight inside. Remember that theme in judging fights. Let's move on to some other boxing news. Kell Brook has announced that he doesn't want to fight Timothy Bradley. All I can say is no kidding. Kell Brook, in my opinion, can't fight inside. Right? Timothy Bradley is exactly the wrong kind of matchup for him because Bradley can match him in foot speed. But once he comes inside, that fight's a mismatch. We saw Kell Brook with his back up against the ropes against Carson Jones. His inside game is not his strength. And unfortunately, boxing's like a chain. If you have a weak link in your game, that's the link that your opponent is going to focus on. Right? So Timothy Bradley is one of those rare fighters who can fight outside and can fight inside and has hand speed. If Timothy Bradley were to get Kell Brook up on the ropes, just like Bradley got Kendall Holt up on the ropes, a much harder puncher in my opinion than Kell Brook, I think the fight would start to get predictable. I think Kell Brook would get taken apart. So expect Kell Brook to avoid Timothy Bradley, right? It's not about the title. It's about the matchup for him. So he's trying to call out Ricky Hatton, who, let's face it, is trying to go down memory lane in his 30s after being out of the ring for several years. Maybe he has some success against non-elite level competition. But once Ricky Hatton steps in the ring against an elite mover, he's in all kind of trouble, right? So I'm not surprised Kell Brook is avoiding Timothy Bradley. Let me add another perspective fight. Andre Ward recently commented on Andre Dirrell. The two guys are good friends from way back, right? And Andre Ward basically said that he's open to a Dirrell fight if Dirrell proves himself, right? Because Dirrell, after the Arthur Abraham fight, has taken a while to get back in the ring. He fought Darrell Cunningham. Darrell Cunningham, quite frankly, is not world class. Sounds hard? This is a hard video, right? Well, let me just sound even harder. I don't believe Andre Dirrell can fight inside. I think Andre Ward beats Andre Dirrell rather convincingly, right? You know what? When Andre Dirrell fought Carl Froch, a fight in which I picked Froch but made a video after watching the fight saying Dirrell got robbed, right? There are many moments in that fight where Carl Froch gets inside, and keep in mind, I don't believe Carl Froch is that adept inside, right? But Carl Froch comes close to Andre Dirrell, and Dirrell flops. In my opinion, that's a rehearsed move. We saw the same move from David Haye against Vladimir Klitschko. That's a move guys do when you get too close to them and they know they aren't that good inside, right? You never see an Andre Ward flopping or a Timothy Bradley flopping, because when you get close to them, well, guess what? That's where they want you. They're going to let their hands go. They're going to be ripping body shots and uppercuts, right? That's not Andre Dirrell. So, given that Andre Ward has much more foot speed than Arthur Abraham, I believe this fight would literally be Andre Ward as hunter, hunting down Andre Dirrell, and there would come a time where Andre Dirrell would find his back up against the ropes and he wouldn't have the ability, in my opinion, to get Andre Ward off of him. I like Ward in that matchup if that matchup ever happens. Let me say this too. Guys who can't fight inside, you'd be surprised how stressful the fight is for them when they're being hunted. The David Haye-Derek Chisora fight. I know the Haye people will say we won every round. They did. I'm not here to say that they didn't win the rounds. What I am here to say is, look at the end of the fight. Look how tired David Haye looks at the end of that fight. Right? David Haye's a great athlete. He was able to stay outside for 12 rounds against both Vladimir Klitschko, against Nikolai Valuev. Right? Haye's a guy who normally doesn't have a problem going 12 rounds. Here, you knew something was going on when the fight was 10 rounds. Then, of course, he knocks out Chisora in the middle of the fight. He's huffing and puffing. Why? Because guys who can fight inside, when you stalk them, they just stand there. They're ready to throw blows. Floyd Mayweather will literally plant his front foot, lean, and have you come up on him in the middle of the ring. They're not running around the ring getting tired. But the guys who can't fight inside, when you chase them, they run away. They're on their bike. They're moving around the ring. They're expending energy. Against a champion like Andre Ward in a 12-round fight, if you're on your bike against a fast-footed guy like Andre Ward, you're going to be dead tired. Sooner or later, Ward's going to catch up to you, and the fight's going to be over. You're going to be wilted up on the side of the ring with Ward in front of you like he was Alan Green. I like Andre Ward over Andre Dirrell if that fight ever happens. Also, just another boxing story, Jackie Nava, one of the best fighters in women's boxing, is pregnant. We'll see how long she's out of the ring. This is, a new development in boxing. Let's see how it impacts her career. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Oh, let me say one other thing too. I always say that the testing in boxing is a total joke. The enforcement in boxing is a total joke. I want everyone to look at Dennis Boystov's next opponent, Konstantin Airich, who actually tested positive for a banned substance following his loss to Adlinger Salis. That was several months ago. Several months ago. You would think by now Airich would be suspended. Not only is he not suspended, he's Dennis Boystov's next opponent. If you believe in drug testing and boxing, you're crazy. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com and DwyerBoxingNews.com. Thanks for watching.